Welcome to a Game 5 edition of CLNS Celtics Roundtable. Oh man, what a night, what a game. I'm Jonathan Levy. I am joined by the Roundtable. This time we got Evan Valente, Jonathan Ignall, and CLNS Newsfeed Manager Mike Walsh. I'm sure you'll recognize his voice if you listen to the newsfeed at all. Guys, a fantastic win for the Celtics. They are one game from doing the do, coming all the way back from 2-0 and going to Chicago, losing home court advantage. What was the key to this game, Evan Valente?
Well, you look at a couple of different things as to why Boston wins this game. Going perfect from the line is huge. For those of you that hate free throws, it's a great game for the Celtics, or free throw misses, it's a great game for the Celtics, 23 out of 23. Wasn't a great shooting night, but the biggest key to this game is other guys picking up Isaiah, and the guy that did that the most, no question, the best playoff game of his life. Avery Bradley finishes with 24 points, 6 rebounds, and really carried the offense in the first half when Boston was really struggling. I thought he was aggressive. He had a couple of three-pointers. His defense was spectacular. I think somebody made a point out of it at one point during the broadcast. It was Mike or Tom, I don't remember. But Avery, deep into the third, early part of the fourth quarter, didn't have a personal foul and was pretty much guarding Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade all night. So he was really instrumental in Boston carrying this thing out. Hats off to him. Al Horford was great. Again, it wasn't a great offensive night for most guys, but Al was spectacular, and Kelly Olynyk off the bench gave him a huge lift.
Mike Walsh, what did you see?
Tagging on there, it was pretty much Avery Bradley, the story of this one, finally sort of getting going, and I think Gorman had a stat towards the end of the game where Jimmy Butler, in however many games against the Celtics, he's never shot over 50%, and he keeps shooting under 40%, and really have to, I think, credit Avery and everything else he was able to do tonight. But I hate going back and being a downer on it. It's the story of the whole game and the whole series is still Rondo. But it's his brain, and you can tell throughout the game he's coaching on the sidelines right now, and I just feel like everyone else on that team takes such a drastic step back without him on the court. And with him on the court, defensively they're much better, offensively they're obviously much better, even if he's unable to shoot the ball.
Yeah, it still feels like the series has completely changed, and the Bulls just look lost without him. Chicago had 3 hot shooting quarters that didn't keep up, but this is a big win. If the Bulls weren't shooting so hot, that's the only reason they stayed in this game.
Even with the Jimmy Butler 3 at the end of the third quarter, with Terry Rozier basically in his back pocket, buried it from what felt like 30 feet plus on the right wing. It felt like that this was just a game that, despite the fact that Boston was moving the ball really well and rebounding well and limiting turnovers and not missing free throws and doing all these things, it still felt like at that point that Chicago was just going to do just enough to squeak this out, but Boston really put the clamps on the fourth quarter.
Celtics basically pitched a perfect game out there with their 6 turnovers. I mean, who only gets 6 turnovers in a playoff game? It's kind of unheard of. And when you combine that with the perfect 23 for 23 from the line, it's hard to lose when you do those things that well. I mean, they had a chance to lose because they shot 22% from the three-point line anyway and really struggled all game to find an offense. But man, oh man, when all was said and done, it's just hard to lose. The Bulls were going to have to play a fantastic game, and as Evan said, they played great for 3 quarters, but could not put together the 48 minutes.
Yeah, I just find it hard moving forward to see them really replicating this performance. I mean, Dwayne Wade had his best game in, since last postseason, 26 points in 35 minutes, 10 for 10 from the line, and flirted with a triple-double. They also got a lot of contributions from Robin Lopez, who was incredible. The only shot he missed, he threw over the backboard.
This is a team now that's using somebody else that's not comfortable playing point guard and running the offense to play point guard and bail them out. Luckily for them, Jimmy Butler's amazing, and Dwayne Wade sometimes dials it back and has these great games. Again, Boston takes advantage of Chicago's lack of starting an offense. They don't, as people point out, I think Zach Lowe pointed this out in the article Wednesday morning that he wrote and put up on ESPN, about how maybe one of the keys for Chicago is getting to their offense a little bit quicker because they don't have a guy with pinpoint accuracy anymore. It looked like they started out doing that in the first couple of quarters, and that died out by the end. They just couldn't keep up with the pace.
Another thing that stood out to me is Boston completely committing to the small ball approach, which they've done for 3 games now. Amir Johnson, another DMP. Olynyk, 20 minutes. Jerebko, 10 minutes. Al Horford played. That's it for big guys. And yet they only lost the rebounding battle by 4. If they can hang in on the boards with a team this small, the Bulls just don't really have a chance, I think.
Thinking about if you looked at it where In the last 2 games, Isaiah Thomas is 2 for 19 from 3, and Jay Crowder didn't hit a 3 this game and shot poorly last game. It's just strange to see Isaiah so cold. What's going on with him?
Pretty obvious.
It's a legs thing.
On court.
His mind is back, but I still think it's just a toll on your body what he went through. And I think his legs just aren't there yet. And it probably also has something to do with who they're covering him with, size-wise, and what he's just sort of taking what they're giving him at this point. And it's almost to the point where his kickouts are now equally as impressive as his ability to just get the shot up. I'm not sure how he's finding these guys on the perimeter, and that's become, I guess, the new amazing thing, the next amazing thing that he's been able to do.
Yeah, I guess I can see maybe it's a legs thing. I see what you're saying there, Walsh. Like, because he is short on a lot of these, and like kind of well short on a couple of them. And I can't be too specific with it, but I remember him being like almost airballing a couple of them. You know,
to be specific when there's 17 of them.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I get what you're saying there. But again, sometimes, you know, Isaiah's role is very interesting in how he kind of like sort of develops. Like the kick out passes, the wraparound kick out passes that he's thrown to Marcus Smart are a huge part of the game. I think that he needs to kind of relish a little bit more, because he is such a 3-point threat. We all know this. He's a great 3-point shooter, and he's an absolute killer inside the paint. But when he draws so much attention and they have a bunch of guys standing on the perimeter, it is more advantageous to them to just kick it out and have, like, although Marcus Smart being a guy isn't the best idea to be, you know, shooting those kind of shots, but if you put him in the corner, maybe that'll work. But Isaiah, you know, drawing all that attention to kicking out to somebody is a good thing, whether it's to Gerald Green or Jay Crowder or Avery Bradley, Al Horford, Kelly Olynyk. They have shooters outside that can shoot. So if he can do that, you know, consistently, that would be big for him, not only in this series, but moving forward against whoever they play in the next round if they make it that far.
Another thing that doesn't get talked about as much as it probably could through this playoffs is Al Horford has been playing fantastically the entire series. Like, it is so nice to see Al rebound. He's getting more assists than he's gotten in the regular season even, and that's hard to do in the playoffs, but he's pulling it off. He's shooting a high percentage. He's scoring pretty well, actually a little better than normal for him as well. He's stealing the ball. I mean, it's incredible to see Al sort of be playoff Al instead of regular Al. And maybe it's because he's the only big man out there, so he's getting more rebounds as a result, and he's taking it a little more on himself. And maybe it's also because they've needed him to step up a bit more with Isaiah losing his sister and the way that's been tougher for Isaiah. So Al's had to take a little more on. But it's nice to see that he's able to do it. Al earning it, maybe.
It's great to see an aggressive Al and taking advantage of some mismatches and some bad defenders, quite frankly, on Chicago's side. Kelly Olynyk, too. Kelly Olynyk, this was the most fire I've ever seen out of Kelly. I think there was one play in particular where I was not too impressed. He had Morrow on the block and decided to kick out to a three-point shooter instead of trying to take the undersized Morrow to the rim. But did you guys hear Tommy Heinsohn pretty much tell Mirotic that you can't guard me?
Yes, it was
82-year-old Tommy Heinsohn telling Mirotic that he can't guard him. That was terrific.
I tweeted about it. It was an amazing moment that Levy missed because he hates Tommy Heinsohn.
That's correct. I still got LeVar Ball in the one-on-one game against Tommy Heinsohn, too, guys. Just letting you know. Another thing that happened tonight, after the game, CLNS's own Josue Pavone, of course, from the pregame, asked Fred Hoiberg about Isaiah Thomas and carrying the ball. Hoiberg just said no and walked away. Hoiberg maybe finally owning that it's not really about traveling. It's just about quality and talent. And the Celtics have it, guys.
You just get back to types of Josue like that.
Yeah, Josue, you know, it's the question that had to be asked. And sometimes you got to ask that question. Everybody in the room that's a Boston media member absolutely loved that question. And you know they did. Boston media members love to antagonize people, and that's a terrific question to leave. To like, that's the last image last thing that Hoiberg has to answer before he leaves the press conference. That's awesome. That's great stuff. So hats off to Josue. But back to Horford though, because you know this is a guy that's been sort of ridiculed way too much for me this entire season, and he was absolutely ridiculous and has been throughout this entire series. But the assists continue to be like the most impressive thing for me. A guy that's legitimately a point center. It's ridiculous to kind of picture that and fathom that going into the season that Al Horford during big playoff games is going to be one of the best distributors, but he continues to do this. And the reason why it's just so important and impressive is because, again, in that same article that Zach Lowe put out on Wednesday morning, he put out the fact that the Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford pick and roll in this series has been scoring at 1.2 points per possession, which would be arguably one of the most, depending on how many minutes you put the filter at. One of the most dynamic and most efficient plays you could run in any sort of basketball, any sort of team this year in the NBA. And Al being able to pass out of that and make the next read almost instantaneously, and we always laud his ability to kind of make the next move before everybody else seems to see it. But his ability to pass out of that pick and roll, and either give it back to Isaiah for a good shot or find an open shoot in the corner after driving to the basket and putting 2 dribbles on the floor or whatever, is a huge important part of the Celtics offense. That Brad has kind of unlocked this thing with him. More than I think Coach Budenholzer did with Atlanta.
See, I spent the whole first half kind of excited to come on here with you guys, and I feel like I'm part of the ridiculing of Al Horford too, Evan.
You are, dude. You are. I didn't even mention that. I never.
You guys don't care that it's just getting worked left and right by Robin Lopez for 3 quarters, and the Robin Lopez factor, it's not leaving, and I can't overlook it. I'm just not there with you guys.
But
yet.
Al Horford was like significantly better than Robin Lopez tonight, and Robin Lopez had only missed 1 shot.
He had 19 points in the second half. He had 9 assists for the game. You can kill Al Horford for the things he doesn't do well. I've certainly done it too. The rebounds have been really disappointing. The scoring, I'd like him to be more aggressive. But he did 21 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, shot the ball really well. He's averaging over 9 boards a game in this series. I don't think this is the time to kill Al Horford. This is the time to praise him. What's
going on with Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, that's weird.
He's a great player, but he fades in and out this whole series. Sorry, last game, 23 foul shot attempts. This game, 1. I know Avery Bradley was spectacular, but game 3 he had 0. I know Avery Bradley was spectacular, but some of that's got to be on Jimmy, right?
That's a weird stat. I'm not sure what to say about it. That's just very odd that you would go from 0 to 23 to 1.
After the game, Jimmy talked about his weird performance. He goes, quote, and he shook his head at the fact that Avery Bradley kind of locked him down a little bit. He says, quote, I didn't win the matchup. Yeah, that's just putting it mildly, Jimmy. But he's going to demand, he shot the ball 15 times. It's not like he didn't shoot the ball well. He just had a really rough night shooting. And, he's not the best. That's the one knock on Jimmy Butler. He's not a fantastic, knockdown shooter. Still a very good one, but he just, I don't know, he didn't look like he was trying to get to the rack enough. That's would be because again, when you shoot the ball 26 times to the free throw line the game prior and only take 1, has that ever happened before?
I mean, if someone got really sick, maybe something like that.
Yeah, right.
That's about it.
Some weird outlier, he had the flu that night, and that's why he only had 1 free throw, or he didn't play a lot of minutes, or he had foul trouble or something. I don't know. Just seems really, really, really off. I was waiting for Jimmy Butler to come back and kind of dominate, especially when the game was late and he hits that big 3 and the Bulls are looking like they're going to be able to snatch this one out of the Celtics' hands at the end of the third quarter. But then he just never really turned it on. It was more about Wade hitting shot after shot more than Jimmy Butler.
Thanks for listening to Celtics Roundtable, powered by CLNS Radio. For Evan Valente, Jonathan Ignall, and Mike Walsh, I'm Jonathan Levy. We're coming back tomorrow, Friday morning, for our Game 6 preview. Can the Celtics wrap it all up? We'll see you then.